take on the darkness, stare down deceit. Murder in the headlines, justice in the beat. From cold case whispers to killers in disguise, we rip off the mask, expose all the lies. Facts like bullets reload and deliver. Truth cuts deep like a blade in a river. Corruption shakes when the mic goes live. We dig where others won't survive. Change rolling through the smoke. Truth hits hard, no time for a joke. Deceit, murder, we name every name. No restraint, no shame, just flame. Locked on the case, we investigate. Cold files heat up when we penetrate. The only source you'll ever need. 12 gauge investigate. We make them bleed. No games, no censors, just truth. Justice is loud, and we're the sound. This is 12 gauge investigative.
This is 12 gauge investigative. Let's jump in.
All right. I couldn't find myself. Sorry for a minute. My name's 12 Gauge. This is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. I don't know exactly what's going on. Let me move myself out of this because I don't really like this. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. I'm trying to figure all this out. How are y'all doing tonight? My name's 12 Gauge. This is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. Can y'all hear me okay? What's up, everyone in the chat? I hope that you came to the right place, the place where we don't just talk about the end of the day, we talk about all day, every day, 24/7. We talk about all kinds of crime, but we specialize in this one because for whatever reason, it is the popular topic. So, I wanted to just get on here and read a little bit. Are y'all cool with that? What do y'all think about the backdrop? Is it a little too much? Did I go a little too far on that? You know, I had a person call me a name, and one of my when I put these up on my post, you know, the community post, she called me a clown because she said I was making fun of autistic people just because I said, "Look, mom, I button my top button." Isn't that what everybody was saying that he was doing? That he could button his top button? I mean, I wasn't making fun of him. I was just going along with the narrative that people were saying. That's why he took the selfie. Is that not why he took the selfie? Y'all help a brother out. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and set this up. So, y'all tell me how your day's been. Y'all had a good Tuesday. It was kind of hard to go back to work right after the holiday. I can tell you that. Wasn't fun at all, but I'm sure we got through it. Let me get this set up like I want. Because y'all really don't care about the being able to see the book. So I'm going to put it right here. If you can see that little small print, then you can read it, I guess. Is this thing still on? I hope so. Hope so. I know there's a delay, so when I ask a question, I don't expect an answer right away. I expect the answer like 5 minutes after I ask the question. All right, cool. See, here come the answers right now. Okay. Well, let's begin. Let's talk about while Idaho slept. While Idaho slept, there was a lot of bad things happening in the middle of the night. A lot of bad things. And while those bad things were happening, nobody believes that those bad things actually happened, which is the sad part. They believe it's just a made up fantasy of somebody's reality. Chapter 37. Classes at WSU had ended for Christmas break in early December. Koberger, a PhD candidate with a teaching assistantship, had finished grading his student's paper. He had packed his white Hyundai Elantra with his belongings on December 12th, then departed campus for a 2,500-mile drive across the United States, back to his hometown of Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, in the Pocono Mountains. Riding shotgun with Koberger was his 67-year-old father, Michael, a tall, heavy-set man with the physique of an aging football player. Michael had flown west from Pennsylvania to accompany his son on a long drive back home, squeezing his large body into the passenger seat of the sedan as they set out. Instead of driving directly across the northern United States, Koberger took a longer southern route through the mountainous west, reportedly to avoid a whiteout snowstorm in parts of Idaho and Montana. On December 13th, his white Elantra was seen by an automated license plate reader in Loma, Colorado, where the car had cut east on I-70. On December 15th, a Hancock County, Indiana sheriff deputy flagged down Koberger and his father on the interstate just past Indianapolis. Koberger pulled his Elantra to the far right shoulder, where a small hillside of grass had gone muddy with melting snow. The FBI was reportedly tailing Koberger as he traveled. The method they used remained undisclosed, but traditionally the process involved unmarked vehicles or small, low-flying surveillance planes, even high-tech drones, all coupled with a robust system of license plate readers dotting that map. The feds were reportedly monitoring from afar as the sheriff deputy got out of his vehicle and approached the passenger side window of the Hyundai. The ensuing interaction recorded by his body cam. Michael Koberger rode down the passenger side window. He'd had two bankruptcies over the years and a lot of sad trouble with his son, drug abuse, and an interaction with the law when at 19. He allegedly stole one of his sister's phones and sold it, according to the subsequent news reports, and the boy had always had a difficult time making friends. He looked up at the deputy approaching. I'm glad that this is a transcript because a lot of that interaction, you couldn't hear it very well because of the traffic. So this is exactly, I guess, what happened. How you all doing today? The deputy asked, boldly leaning his forearm across the interior of the door. Michael Koberger nodded, leaning backward slightly. He squinted upward through his glasses, waiting for more information about what they'd just been stopped. The deputy then requested Brian Koberger's driver's license. Other vehicles roared by. As Brian searched for his license, the deputy told him, "You was right up on that van, man. I pulled you over for tailgating." Koberger nodded, looking calm. He handed his driver's license across his father's torso. "Where are you headed?" the deputy asked. "We're going to get some Thai food," Brian told him. "Well, we coming from WSU," his father corrected. "What WSU?" Apparently, trying to be agreeable, Michael added more information than necessary. He explained that his son was a student at Washington State University and that, in fact, Brian had received a text alert about a SWAT standoff near campus that very day. The small talk only made things confusing for the deputy. So you're coming from Washington State University and you're going where? Eventually, they described the circumstances with more clarity. We're slightly punchy because we've been driving for hours, Michael explained. Do me a favor, the deputy eventually said to Brian. Don't follow too close, okay? He let them go with a warning. The feds reportedly monitored Koberger's Elantra pulling back into the interstate. Less than 10 minutes later, Brian Koberger was again stopped by the police, again pulling his vehicle to the far right shoulder. The traffic was heavy with a big 18-wheelers roaring by. This time it was an Indiana state trooper who approached the passenger side of Koberger's Elantra. Michael again squinted up through his lenses. The trooper spoke across him just like the last cop, explaining to Brian that he had been driving too closely behind a semi-trailer. You only had one car length, the trooper said. Brian admitted that they'd just been stopped a few miles back for the same reason. You got stopped by a trooper? Michael again over-explained. No, it'd been a sheriff deputy, and he told the story of the SWAT standoff that day at WSU. The story didn't seem to track with the trooper. So let me ask you this question, chat. The individual gets stopped twice in less than 10 minutes for doing the same thing. If Mr. Koberger is indeed as brilliant as people make him to be, would he not have learned in that 10-minute period not to tailgate so closely after being stopped the first time for it? And the second part of my question is, what on God's green earth made the father talk about that SWAT standoff twice? Not once. I can see the nervousness in the one time. What would make him talk about that twice? Share with me your thoughts in the chat on both of those questions because I'm inquisitive to know, once again, if Brian got stopped the first time for tailgating, would he not have known not to do it again? And the 10-minute stop that appeared after that might have not happened, correct? Y'all help me out in the chat. Okay, here we go. Well, I'm not going to give you guys another ticket or warning, he interjected. He leaned his forearms on an open window ledge and peered into the car. Eventually, he added, where were y'all heading to? They told him Pennsylvania. So they didn't say to Thai food this time. Maybe the dad got onto him and said, that was the dumbest answer you could have given the cop. What were you thinking? PA, that's a long haul. You guys scared of planes? In the blue sky above, thick cumulus clouds were moving closer. Koberger pulled his Elantra, filthy from travel, back onto the interstate. The entire trip, there had been a police bolo. Be on the lookout for a white Honda Elantra, possibly associated with the murders in Moscow, and additional public requests for information about the car. It is not publicly known why that bolo was issued when they'd already had Koberger as their primary suspect. A law enforcement officer who did not wish to be named suggested the bolo may have been for the appearance only, so that Koberger would falsely believe the police were still lost in the weeds of their investigation. My confusion here is if there was a bolo and he gets pulled over twice, how did that not come up? How did that not come up? Just so many things he like just barely skated by, you know? Luckily, neither the Hancock County Sheriff Deputy nor the Indiana State Trooper had known about the bolo, or they might have prematurely begun to question Koberger about his vehicle. If he'd gotten edgy, what then? The feds had reportedly been tracking Koberger from a distance on purpose, allowing the task force time to build a proper case, but any skittishness by their suspect could have been catastrophic. There might have been violence on the road, and Koberger could have absconded. Until now, he'd seemed to have no idea that he was being watched, and Chief Fry wanted to keep it that way. Koberger and his father arrived at the family home in Albrightsville on December 16th, and the FBI contacted the Pennsylvania State Police to assist with surveillance of the Koberger residence. It was a modest home in the wooded gated neighborhood, and like each of the homes in the neighborhood, it sat on a relatively large parcel. The Koberger house had 3 bedrooms on an acre of land. Koberger's behavior during his initial days in Pennsylvania was monitored closely. He was observed taking his vehicle to a local mechanic for servicing, and he was spotted in a driveway wearing surgical style gloves while meticulously suctioning the Hyundai's upholstery and trunk with a shop vacuum. Oddly, and quite suspiciously in the eyes of the surveillance team, Koberger was also observed at 4 a.m. taking trash bags from his family residence and walking them down the long driveway to deposit them in his next door neighbor's trash bins, not in the bins belonging to his own family. Later, under the cover of darkness, the surveillance team grabbed the Koberger family trash before any more of it could disappear and shipped it back to Idaho. Forensics experts at the state crime lab outside of Boise put on their own rubber gloves and went to work. It isn't suspicious that this man was up at 4 a.m. sorting trash. That doesn't find anybody's red flag meter there. It's not suspicious at all to anybody that, or is that just natural behavior from people that live in Pennsylvania? I mean, can y'all help me out with that, chat? Mountain Mama says, I think if I'd been a parent after the second stop, I would have taken the wheel. I agree with that. I agree with that. Hey, Mickey, Rondi, Mountain Mama, glad to see you here. You know, that's not strange to y'all that he was out at 4 a.m. sorting trash, throwing them away at his neighbor's trash can. It's just me, but I think that's a little coincidental. But you know, according to everybody else, we must give this man the benefit of the doubt. Chapter 38. Chief Fry and his team had gotten their biggest break yet. The garbage bag snatched from the Koberger family included a DNA sample from Michael Koberger. According to the crime lab, the sample was a paternal match to detect DNA found on a knife sheath that was left behind at the murder scene next to Maddie Mogan's body. So everybody that is tripping out on the DNA, did y'all just hear me read that? All right, just me. Touche. Touche. Glad to see you here, whoever you are. I've never seen you before. I don't live in PA, but I guarantee you I would have questions. If I find one of mine sorting trash at 4 a.m., there will be questions. But did you hear what I just read? And I want y'all to hear this because people trip out on the DNA and all that stuff on how they fabricated everything to get to Koberger. Look at what it says. It says the garbage bag snatched from the Koberger family included a DNA sample from Michael Koberger. According to the crime lab, this sample was a paternal match to the touch DNA found on a knife sheath that was left behind at the murder scene next to Maddie Mogan's body. So all that mess that we listen to daily about that DNA, about it being inflated and this and that, and it was messed with every step of the way, and all that. It just as simple as what I just read. Whoever had opened that snap on the sheets was the son of Michael Koberger, and the man had only one son, not four. Brian Koberger, a student living just over 10 minutes from the victims, appeared to be the killer the world had been looking for. They had not found an exact match to Brian Koberger's DNA in the trash bin, and that was unusual, but not prohibitive of a warrant. Koberger's exact DNA profile was a bridge that investigators could cross later, and they would. For now, lead investigator Brett Payne submitted a probable cause affidavit for an arrest. Warrants were immediately approved for Brian Koberger to be taken into police custody in Pennsylvania and for search and seizure of property at the modest family home in Albrottsville, including the white Hyundai Elantra sedan. I believe that people don't listen when people talk. I really do. That's why it's easier to jump on anything that sounds exciting. Well, I'm just going to tell you that's pretty damn exciting what I just read because that simplifies it so much. You know, that's a good question, but I'm sure at that point he wasn't even a suspect. So why are you going to take a DNA of somebody who's not a suspect? You know, because you got to be able to prove this stuff. Got to be able to prove this stuff. What the police had hoped to find were blood or fiber samples on clothing, the murder weapon itself, incriminating documents, stored data on Koberger's electronics, computer devices, or cell phones, or any other evidence of the crimes, even property belonging to Maddie, Kaylee, Dana, or Ethan, such as their clothing or identification cards or other trophies Koberger might have taken from the scene. Search and seizure warrants were also issued for Koberger's apartment unit in Pullman, Washington, and for the office he accompanied as a student teacher in the Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology on WSU's campus, but those would wait until after his arrest. Getting to Koberger before he could flee was the top priority. For now, the authorities in Pennsylvania devised a strategy for taking Koberger into custody. They would have to approach late at night, that was certain. It would be safest for everybody, including Brian Koberger's parents. And they would have to keep a tight lid on the pending arrest. With the large number of cops now working the case across multiple states, and with the intense media scrutiny and volume of reporters chasing down stories, it was always possible that a rogue associate of a law enforcement officer could surreptitiously leak information for personal gain or simply be too chatty at the local watering hole. If Koberger got tipped off before the police department's extraction operation, they could be looking at a bloodbath when they went to grab him. Long after midnight on December 30th, nearly 50 tactical assets from the Pennsylvania State Police crept through the Koberger family neighborhood under cover of darkness. They were serving a high-risk warrant on an alleged quadruple homicide perpetrator, and they weren't taking any chances with the number of assets working his extraction. It was better to be overmanned than undermanned. Then, beneath a three-quarter moon, the tactical team did what it does best. They cracked the hinges off the Koberger home doors, broke out the windows, and stormed the residence. I'm sorry, I can't. I mean, not that I'm ignoring you, but I can't do both. I can't read and answer your questions in the chat. So, if anybody in the chat has a answer for any of these questions, please be respectful and answer those questions. Okay? Don't get into an argument. Don't start name calling or anything else. Have adult conversation, please. Um, According to reports, Brian Koberger was found wide awake, standing in his parents' kitchen. He was wearing latex gloves, shorts, and a t-shirt while stuffing his personal trash into Ziploc baggies for later disposal. That was odd, to say the least, but appeared to explain why the surveillance team hadn't found his exact DNA profile in the family bins. Koberger had either been hiding his trash and consequently his DNA from the authorities, sensing they were gaining on him, or his particular behavior was related to a possible obsessive compulsive disorder that will later be alluded to online. Koberger's parents appeared shocked at his arrest and at the subsequent search of their household while they watched their boy being put into handcuffs and taken from the residence. Investigators confiscated, among other things, several handguns, knives, black clothing, black gloves, black face masks, size 13 athletic shoes, medical style gloves, computer and cell equipment, and the family shop vacuum that Koberger had used to clean his car. From the Hyundai, investigators seized the shovel, gloves, hiking boots, goggles, the seats and cushions of the vehicle, a door panel, the headrest, and the gas and brake assemblies. Brian Koberger was shuttled to the Monroe County Correctional Facility, where he changed into a jail-issued jumpsuit and was discreetly booked. He was held without bond until he could be returned to Idaho. These trying times, I appreciate to look under another breath. Appreciate each and every. Hold on a second. What the hell? Where'd that come through? Oh, I skipped a page. That's why. While the search of his on-campus office later that afternoon reportedly turned up nothing substantive, investigators raiding his apartment in Pullman found and confiscated a black examination-style glove designed to be resistant to chemicals and puncturing. Police also took the dust container from Koberger's vacuum cleaner, several hair strands, a possible animal hair strand, a computer tower, stained mattress covers, and cuttings from an uncased pillow that showed reddish-brown stains. That day, Chief Fry held an impromptu press conference from Idaho addressing Koberger's capture. He stood beside an American flag in a wood-paneled room among members of his task force. The media was caught by surprise, and many filmed him with their cell phones. Last night, he started at the podium. In conjunction with the Pennsylvania State Police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. Fry choked up before continuing on a warrant for the murders of Ethan, Xana, Madison, and Kaylee. He took another breath, steadying himself. Being in the limelight was still not his forte. These murders have shaken our community, Fry said solemnly, and no arrest will ever bring back these young students. Then, blinking back tears, he spoke more emotionally than most police chiefs. Over the past 6 weeks, I've been continually reminded of how much our community cares. Locally, public support has been exceptional. with kind words, food for investigators, and letters of support. You will never know how much your words of encouragement helped us through these trying times. I appreciate he took another breath. Appreciate each of you and each of your kindness. When it came time to answer questions, Fry took a couple dozen. One reporter asked, your department and other investigators on the case took a lot of flack for keeping information close to your chest. Are you glad you did that? Fry smiled knowingly. I will 100% stand behind the way that we handled this investigation. But there were holes in this case that nobody except perhaps Koberger's lawyers had thought about. The PhD student in criminology was preparing to fight. Part 8. So, what do y'all think so far? Pretty good? Well, that's good that no one's arguing. That's not permitted here. We agree to disagree. So if nobody's answering you because you're trying to start an argument, that's why. No one's going to argue. This isn't a debate class. I mean, you're free to have your opinion just like anybody else. You know what I mean? So carry on. If you'd like to continue speaking, that's fine. I mean, we don't argue in here. Chapter 39. The youngest of Michael and Marianne Koberger's three children, Brian Christopher Koberger, was born in November 1994 in the remote Pocono Mountains regions of Monroe County, Pennsylvania. The area was known for its forested ridges and lush green valleys, dotted with summer cabins and freshwater lakes, and for NASCAR races at the Pocono Raceway less than 10 miles away in Long Pond. On NASCAR weekends, the cars were so loud they could be heard across the mountains in Albrightsville, where Brian eventually lived. But there were the other Poconos, too, a landscape of repressed economies and rural decline in the wake of decades-old collapse of steel industry, an area of rampant drug abuse now. Opioids were the most commonly used, but this often led to heroin because it was cheaper. Koberger's parents both worked for the local Pleasant Valley school system. His father had been a maintenance worker and his mother a paraprofessional attending to special needs children. Their jobs were stable but not high paying, and the family had sometimes struggled financially. The Kobergers filed for bankruptcy protection in 1995, the year after Brian was born, and again in 2010 when he was a teenager. The family first lived in a box shaped two-story home in the conservative leaning community of Effort, population approximately 2,000. They would eventually live in several homes in various towns within the county. The Pleasant Valley Middle and High School District was colloquially known as Pregnant Valley, according to one of Koberger's classmates, because of the exceptionally high birth rate among pre-high school grad teens in that area. A young woman who often sat beside Koberger on the bus through most of his junior and high school years remembers chatting with him at the bus stop each morning while they waited for their ride. She was nerdy, she says, focused on getting good grades and not into the social scene, and she was often bullied at school as well as on the bus. It was an experience she and Koberger shared. They both were outcast, and this became the crux of their relationship. It was the same route for 6 or 7 years, says the young woman who didn't want her name used in print, and the same bullies repeatedly harassed her. Adding insult to injury, the Pleasant Valley school lockers were assigned alphabetically, so the bullies whose names started with the same letters as hers were inescapable year after year. Koberger had the same problem, she says. It was insanity, and the school did not give a shit about bullying at all. If you weren't popular or a jock, you didn't mean shit to anybody there. She recalled Koberger wandering through his days with his earbuds in, blocking out the bullying and the general boredom with music, especially on the bus ride home. He listened to emo type shit like screamo, the young woman says, but he also listened to R&B and pop too. Kind of everything. She knows this because they had talked about their shared passion for music, another thing that bonded them as friends. It's so cool to be able to be reading this right now because none of this has ever been shared. And it's interesting to know that this side of this individual. What do y'all think? I'm enjoying that part. You know what I mean? Although the school district required uniforms at the time, primarily khakis and blue, white, or black polo style shirts, she remembers there was nothing else especially regimented about its academic policies. Administrators reportedly turned a blind eye to the area's drug problems, as well as the frequent violence on school grounds. There was always fights. It was ridiculous to survive there, the young woman says, remembering that many of the students in her and Koberger's grade were transplants from more dangerous areas in New York, less than 2 hours away. Their parents, she guessed, had been trying to remove them from city violence, but it seemed to her like they brought some of it with them to Pleasant Valley. There was like a fight every day when we were in school, she adds, noting that the early years of high school were particularly hard. He got bullied in school because our school was horrible. When the story about Koberger's arrest first made headlines, she was dumbfounded. She pulled up a single article on the case, but she couldn't believe what she was reading. I was like, there's no fucking way, she says. Since then, she hadn't looked at anything about the case online. I kind of want to give him the benefit of the doubt here. Choking up, she adds, I'm really hoping he didn't do this. All her school memories about Koberger were relatively pleasant ones. He was somebody who had kept her company through difficult years. They weren't romantically involved. In fact, Koberger had never dated anybody that she could remember, and she and Koberger didn't even socialize much outside of school. But they had shared a mutual understanding as recipients of the same hostility. It had seemed like they cared about each other's peace of mind, and that was something she valued. I'm just shocked, she says. I've never in 1,000 years would have pictured this. Like knowing the person I knew, I never saw this coming. She sounds closest to tears. Everybody starts out as a kid, and she can't imagine that the kid Brian Koberger was had somehow became a monster. I could be wrong, but I'm hoping, she said, just because he was a weird kid who was my friend, we are both weird. We're both outcasts. We're both bullied. She is honoring her friendship with the young Brian Koberger by reserving judgment on a Brian Koberger that she no longer knows. She believes she owes him that. The murders were another thing altogether. Nobody deserves that, she says. What had happened was horrific, and she doesn't like to think about it. From a young age, when she'd first known him, Koberger was heavy. By late junior high, his body image was noticeably affecting his confidence and social life, and he was already inherently socially awkward. So he didn't have an easy time fitting into the mainstream population. It didn't help that, like his friend on the bus, he was an intelligent student in a struggling school district. The number of high school students testing at reading proficiency levels was under 40%, and the college preparedness was below Pennsylvania's state average. Most students didn't even try to further their education. While he was at Pleasant Valley High in sleepy Broadheadville, where students from several surrounding townships convened, Koberger didn't have many friends and was striking out with the girls. Another of his fellow high school students, Deja Mann, told a New York Post reporter, If he tried to flirt with a girl or anything, they'd get a weird feeling in their stomach. I had that feeling towards him too. She couldn't explain why, but added, my instinct was creeper vibes, and I tried to keep my distance from him. Another student, Ashley Korkmaz, who was 2 years older than Koberger at Pleasant Valley, explained to the Post, I don't want to say he was weird, but he didn't have any social skills and didn't know how to make friends. He was just awkward. Then she added, Brian just wanted to fit in with the popular kids. You notice in all these articles, we never see the people that claim to know him interviewed. Not one time are they ever interviewed. Not one time. Well, I'm glad that you are here, and I'm glad that you're enjoying the book. I'm enjoying bringing it to you. And I'm enjoying that the author did such a great job at this chapter 40. In photograph from his early high school years, Koberger's weight was noticeable. According to the Idaho Statesman's interviews with one of his closest friends from the time, Thomas Arndt, Koberger weighed close to 300 pounds. Arndt and Koberger were both social misfits, the type to keep to themselves and would walk through the nearby woods together or play video games. Koberger was witty and noticed things that others usually didn't, and Arndt enjoyed that at first. But Arndt remembered his friend aiming for more acceptance by his popular classmates, a fit body, and perhaps a future career as either an Army Ranger or a police officer. While enrolled at Pleasant Valley High School, Koberger also took law enforcement classes at Monroe Career and Technical Institute. He had begun to work out obsessively, according to Arndt, taking kickboxing classes, jogging, and changing his diet. He was even photographed in a school-issued police-style uniform for the yearbook, doing push-ups, and his personality seemed to change at the same time. His wit became sharper, more driven by what seemed like agitation. He'd begun to annoy his close friend. He always wanted to be the dominant, physically and intellectually, Arndt told the statesman. He had to show that he was smarter and bigger, and try to put me down and make me feel insecure about myself. So much of that was a torment, and I didn't want to be around him anymore. Koberger had seemingly become more arrogant as he physically transformed himself. He looked good with thick dark hair and a fit physique. His face became more chiseled, and he began to carry himself with a confidence in his physicality. But it felt to Arndt that Koberger was weaponizing his newfound sense of self. And he stopped hanging out with the girl he'd ridden the bus with so many years, so was now trying to spend more time with the popular kids who had bullied her. She sat with her girlfriends now. Another friend, Dominique Clark, said that Koberger had become so odd around girls that several had started to think of him as a creep. If he liked or was interested in a girl and she wasn't, he didn't understand why, or she didn't accept her saying no. Clark told the Post, adding, he just didn't really fit in with anybody. Some of those same girls had reportedly bullied him earlier in his high school career, another of his classmates, Sarah Healy, had said, and now he was trying to date some of them. Batting out of his league, as the expression went, he seemed overly confident. Under the surface, however, Brian Koberger was still struggling. For years, he had apparently been suffering from a neurological condition that was slowly playing with his mind. The condition, called visual snow syndrome, sometimes causes everything in one field of vision to appear within a haze of static, like an old TV screen when the reception is poor. Symptoms include seeing flickering black dots and other visual disturbances, such as starburst or after images, sometimes coinciding with a ringing in the ears and migraines. As a teenager, Koberger posted in the online forum community, Talk, that he was plagued by a mind fizzle, like he had demons in his head, constantly mocking him. In the spring of 2011, when he was 16 years old, he posted, "I always feel as if I'm not here," completely depersonalized. He listed the following as comorbidities of the visual snow he'd been experiencing. The list is taken from Tapatalk, where Koberger's photo, date of birth, and email address were used to verify his identity. Fog, lack of comprehension, and sometimes feel like my life is a movie. Depersonalization, depression, no interest in activity, constant thoughts of suicide, crazy thought, delusions of grandeur, anxiety, poor self image, poor social skills, no emotion. I feel like nothing has a point to it. When I get home, I am mean to my family. This started when visual snow did. I feel no emotion, and along with the depersonalization, I can say and do whatever I want with little remorse. Everyone hates me pretty much, and I'm an asshole. He talked to another user about experiencing palinopsia, continuing to see an image after it's already gone. If a banana were moved across the table, for instance, the trail of the movement would continue to appear after the banana had come to rest. Palinopsia is at least of my worries, Koberger said. I took Topamax before and it just made me insane. I broke my table for no reason, seriously. When I was on Topamax, I did crazy shit that I should have died from. Research based on case studies shows that Topamax improved symptoms of visual snow, but only 15%. According to the Mayo Clinic, Topamax is also used to treat seizures, but its side effect could include blurred vision, confusion, uncontrolled back and forth, or rolling eye movements, double vision, memory problems, aggression, agitation, sadness or emptiness, and ringing in the ears. He tried taking herbal supplement, ginkgo biloba, and he felt this offered some relief. He also tried an anti-inflammatory diet, and while he thought the dietary change and the exercising had become obsessive about were helping, they didn't substantially change his condition. He posted frequently on Tapatalk, where he found sympathy from many others experienced very similar visual snow related symptoms. Together, they theorized about ways to curb their condition when medical professionals could not. Still, the cognitive, psychological, and visual issues persisted. I feel blank and so generic. I can barely remember my eventful childhood, Koberger said. As I try to think of my childhood, I become depressed. He was still just a kid, barely the legal driving age, and yet he was mourning the inability to remember his youth. Something major is wrong with me, he posted, according to a report by Vanity Fair. I'm just a blank soul. By his senior year, Koberger had lost so much weight that he had needed surgery to remove the excess skin from his torso. Friends claimed. His face now looked sunken, his shirt collars hanging from a frail-looking neck. His skin had even paled, and he'd continued to be socially awkward. And he was no longer taking law enforcement courses at the Career and Technical Institute. Instead, he was studying the HVAC systems, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning his father was certified in. When the Idaho statesman looked into why Koberger had made the transition away from the police work, an administrator of the program alluded to disciplinary issues. In general, a student can be very strong academically, the administrator said, but one or more infractions would take the opportunity to participate in that program away. In addition to shifting his academic focus, Koberger reportedly stopped attending in-person classes and finished his high school career online. He was drifting even further from the center of the social circle he'd longed for and fought hard to be a part of, and he had started using heroin, said his friends. We got about 10 more minutes and then I'm going to call it because we have a person who's close to the channel that's about to go online. So um, I hope that y'all really are enjoying this. It's really intriguing to say the least. Chapter 41. Koberger was hardly alone in his drug use, heroin outpacing all other illegal drugs in Monroe County's drug abuse and crime related statistics at the time. It was a neighbor named Jeremy Saba living next just two doors down from Koberger, who the Idaho statesman said had gotten Koberger started. Saba eventually died of an accidental drug overdose, according to the Monroe County coroner, as did several other of Koberger's associates, all in their 20s. As Koberger fell into addiction, the few relationships he had managed to maintain were falling apart. I think drug goofed him up pretty bad, said Jack Bayless, who claimed to have been one of Koberger's closest friends from that period. In a Statesman interview, he'd tell me, I'm clean now. I'm totally clean now. And he'd have bleeding track marks on his arms. At 19, he was bumming rides from friends like Casey Arntz, Thomas Arndt's sister, saying he needed to run errands, then surreptitiously buying needles and supply. Arndt told reporters that Koberger had claimed to need a ride because his car had broken down. She didn't know he'd been using her to score or that she had drugs in her car on the ride home. I remember that lady. When she found out, she laid into him in a Facebook message, upset that he put her at risk for getting charged with drug and paraphernalia possession if they'd been caught in a traffic stop. According to Arndt, Koberger responded, I'm in rehab. And apparently he was. When he got out, he started taking courses at Northampton Community College in Monroe County. He was studying psychology. Sometimes around 2015, he went on a Tinder date with a young woman named Haley. After Koberger was arrested, she used TikTok to tell the world her story of their night together, and then later appeared on multiple networks to tell it again. She said the date was going relatively smoothly at first. They went to a theater to see an action movie, and Koberger was behaving politely. He was quiet, but not unusually so, and he held the door for her when they entered the theater. After the movie, Koberger drove Haley back to her dorm at nearby Penn State, Hazleton. He invited himself inside, and Haley decided that would be fine. She was just not interested in having sex with him, but she was open to extending their evening. They watched another movie on Netflix. Koberger, she said, kept tickling her and trying to touch her in other small ways, which she didn't like. When she asked him to stop and confronted him about putting his hands on her, Koberger turned almost grave. I'm not touching you, he said. Haley now wanted to get him out of her dorm room. Like him, she was socially awkward. Instead of simply asking him to leave, she pretended she needed to use the bathroom. Koberger followed her and stood outside the door. Feeling more and more uncomfortable, Haley pretended to throw up, and the plan worked. Eventually, Koberger texted her that he was leaving. An hour later, out of nowhere, Koberger texts Haley to tell her she had good birthing hips. Creeped out, she ended her contact with him. Haley, why would you feel creeped out at all? Why would you feel creeped out at all? Sometime after that, Koberger briefly dropped out of the community college to go to rehab again. His friends from that period said he continued to struggle with drugs, but when he got clean for the second time, it appeared to stick. He renewed his casework at Northampton while also working for his old high school as a backup custodian and part-time security guard. He was 22. By 24, he had earned his associate's degree in psychology. By now, Michael and Marianne Koberger had moved their family to the three-bedroom home in Albrightsville, still in Monroe County. The house, although 2 stories, was on a smaller side of approximately 1,300 square feet. But it sat on an acre of wooded land in a community of similarly tidy, utilitarian homes. It was a nice, orderly place to live. Koberger enrolled in DeSales University in Center Valley, 45 minutes from his family home, and pursued his bachelor's degree, also in psychology. The thought of using heroin soon disgusted him, he said in a Facebook messages with his friend Jack Bayless, who would later share these messages with the New York Times. I only used when I was in a deep suicidal state, Koberger wrote. I've since really learned a lot. Not a person alive could convince me to use it. Around that time, according to employment records subpoenaed from the Pleasant Valley School District, Koberger had become a diligent and dependable security guard, working the weekend shift to make sure his old high school was buttoned up properly. He even helped save the life of a staff member having a medical emergency. And like I had discussed before, this was the rescuer portion of Brian Koberger. He had stopped victimizing himself using drugs and reinvented himself in being the rescuer and helper of others. The perpetrator had not been created yet. Mountain Mama. Following me to the bathroom would have been enough for me. The ultimate compliment that I've never heard. You've never been told you have great birthing hips? I've never heard that compliment given to anybody. Is that a way of saying that she's a little heavy? You know, we have females who get on panels and talk about each other's weights, and they've never said that about each other. Maybe they should start saying that instead of calling each other fat. What do y'all think? You know what, BJ, you have great birthing hips. I mean, that just sounds silly, but to think about it, I don't know. It's an interesting read nonetheless, and it's really giving you an insight of the man that few really don't know or knew existed, because I had no clue. And I'd always wondered, always wondered, what was Koberger like growing up? Did he have any friends? And obviously he had a female companion that shared what he went through on the bus. So yeah, maybe instead of calling people fat, we can say you have great birthing hips. And for the record, she kicked the cat. If you know, you know. But I'm about to get out of here, and that just shows you that I do follow more different type styles of true crime than just part of it. I have a friend that said the opposite of her daughter-in-law broke her tailbone with every delivery. Jesus. So she did have great birthing hips. Really quick before I get out of here, do y'all believe that BJ kicked the cat? I know that's old news, but I still have to ask. Oh man. Sounds like what some mountain man would say. Baby, you have some great birthing hips. She had 5 or 6 kids too. Wow. Well, tomorrow's Wednesday, so we won't be doing true crime tomorrow. I hope you still decide to show up. We're doing podcast Wednesday where we do a lot different type stuff. Last Wednesday's kickoff went pretty well. Um, so I hope to see you guys there. And why don't you go take a look at my community posts? I've posted plenty of um posted plenty of stuff on there. I think she was playing when she kicked at it. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I remember seeing that video. That was going all over the place. Why did BJ kick the cat? It's all about the dog and me. Why, BJ, did you kick the cat? Does she? Let me ask you guys, because I don't really watch her and I don't know anything about that woman. But I'm going to ask you guys if you've ever watched that woman that I'm talking about. Does she deserve the hatred that she gets, or does she get a bad rap? Because I can't even really talk about somebody that I've never watched before. So I'm just wondering, does she get a bad rap? Or does she deserve the hatred that she gets her way? I'm going to ask that and then I'm going to close out. I want to see what y'all have to say about that. Like I said, I have to wait a little bit because it's of the delay. After the video, she said she hated that cat. Oh my. Good thing the cat was just a little faster than her. Or if she would have had a longer leg, that cat would have been in trouble, I think. So, do you think she deserved the hatred she gets? Or do you think that she is indeed a victim of other people's circumstances? Maybe that'll be my next creation. I'll have Koberger kicking out a cat and then caption it. I didn't kick the cat. What do y'all think? That just cracks me up because I remember the video. The video just, you said, I can't watch often, but she doesn't deserve what they do to her. She plays into it though and keeps it stirred up. I've dipped into her chat as a watcher, not keen. I think she gives as much as she gets. She gives as good as she gets. Okay. See, I haven't ever been over there long enough to really make a definitive notion of understanding of this individual, but I know there's a lot of people that that have something to say about her. I mean, there's one, the only other person that I hear other women talking about is Bullhorn Betty. It's Bullhorn Betty, BJ, and I guess some little minions. I don't know. So so you are all in unison. She kicked the cat. Yeah, those channels do love drama for sure, for sure. I don't want to ever get into that kind of drama. That is just too much. Too much stuff. Don't y'all dare go out there and kick your cats. She could opt out of the drama at any time, but she chooses not to instead devolve deeper and contributing fully with the drama. That's probably true. People that wrecked above us a couple months ago, they wanted to thank us and see if we had more cable. I remember that. Oh, yes, I know. They're crazy. Only watched BJ a couple times. Too dramatic for me. Yeah. There's another one. I think her name's Queen Bee or something like that. Queen Bee. I know I've watched Nonsense before. I've been in Nonsenses before, and she's going after that BJ lady. But like I said, it seems like there's a lot of individuals that go levitating around her, and then there's a second level and a third level and a fourth level. I mean, I see the memes all the time. So almost fell over my cat trying to get out of the door. Well, good thing it wasn't on video. They would have said you tried to kick your cat, I guess. So I try to see it as a you reap what you sow type of thing with her. Granny and Jonesins are drama. See, I've heard of those names, but I've never really I've never even sat in any of those chats. I can tell you I walked into the wrong chat one day because I thought it was true crime. They were talking true crime, right? And I walked in and they said, "We hate you true crimers," blah blah blah, because I said I was a creator, right? I was trying to promote my channel a little bit. And that was a mistake. They started going off on me, and I was like, "Well, thanks for your hospitality. I'm out of here. I'm out of here." you know, I'm out of here. I am not going to get jumped on by a bunch of angry women. I mean, what makes them so angry is my question. What makes them so angry? You say Illuminati is another one. They say horrible things about each other. Okay, I got you. Yeah, Clue used to come in here. She used to come in here and even participate in the chat. She hasn't in a while. I guess it isn't just her style anymore. She does have a lot of subs, so she's probably a pretty busy woman. I can only those big birthing hips. Wow. Why do women talk about each other's weight? I don't get that though. It's like instead of insulting them with intelligence, they talk about their weight or they talk about their looks or they talk about their husbands or boyfriends or all that stuff. Men don't do that, I don't think. You know, we bring out the obvious. It's like, so hey, Bill, your turkey neck getting a little long there. You might need some surgery. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that. I mean, they do talk about their weight though. They do talk about their weight. Well, I'm not fat. I'm this and I'm that and I'm beautiful and da 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 da. Like, okay, go on with your bad self. You know what I mean? Go on with your bad self. You know what I mean? It's like we go for the throat. It's like that turkey neck getting kind of kind of out of hand there, Bill. Many have switched to Sebastian Case. You have to pick sides and play dirty with that one. Okay. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I mean, I know that I do see a lot of Sebastian tags in all their stuff, but I never really notice any kind of investigative stuff. They're always talking about each other. No drama llama. No drama llama. I like that. Well, I guess I'm gonna call it a night for now. Why don't we go over to warning label Nina's and give Nina a like, see what Nina's talking about. Why don't y'all follow me over there? I'll go over there for a little bit and we'll hang out and then see where we go from there. Y'all have a lovely evening. And like I said, tomorrow's not going to be true crime. It's going to be podcast Wednesday. So we'll see exactly where that show goes tomorrow. If y'all know any comedians in the area or anybody that wants to try out their stuff, let me know so we can get some comedians and laughter in the show because I do want to eventually make it like a comedic show. I want some laughter, you know what I mean? So, yeah, exactly. That poor boy, I don't know where he is, but I hope they find him. There's just too much that going on about him going missing. We all have a wonderful night. Like I always say, Maestro, cue that music. And here we go.